Maryland football could end up being a bottom team in the Big Ten.
You are Locked On Terps, your daily podcast on the Maryland Terps, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
What's up, everyone? I'm Tre Moore, host of Locked On Terps, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. So thank you guys for making us part of your day. And today's episode is brought to you by Monarch Money. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code Locked On College at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. Maryland football could end up being one of the worst teams in the Big Ten this year. I never want to put down this Maryland football team. I never want to talk bad about these guys because obviously I like the team. It's better when they do well. I like talking about the potential of them doing well. And I like talking about how good I think they can be rather than me saying this team could be a bottom team in the Big Ten. But you guys know I also am going to bring you a realistic view. I'm not going to lie. I'm going to actually give you guys what I think about this team. And as I kind of think about this team, as my mind wraps around the roster going into the summer and kind of where we're at in terms of portal pickups and all these different things, I'm starting to think Maryland's football team could be one of the worst teams in the Big Ten in terms of on paper, in terms of what they bring out. When we actually talk about record, I think the record could end up being fine based off of just having a really easy schedule. I've talked about it over the last couple of episodes. Maryland's ceiling is higher than maybe what their talent says, maybe than it's been in past years, even though this team is worse under Mike Locksley. But they play such an easy, manageable schedule that Maryland should be able to win games. You play Wisconsin, you play Washington, you play Nebraska, you play UCLA, you play Indiana, you play Rutgers, you play Illinois. Michigan's probably your hardest game of the year, and you play Michigan State. You don't play any of the big boys besides Michigan, the quote-unquote top 10s, the top teams in the Big Ten, whether it's a Penn State, an Ohio State, an Oregon. You miss all those big-time programs, and you really only get Michigan, a team right now that has a lot of question marks still on their team in terms of quarterback and some of those different things. That Michigan team might end up being really good, but they might end up being just decent like they were last year. So there's definitely a lot of question marks there with the Michigan game. But what I'm trying to tell you guys is strictly on paper where the team lines. The team can overperform, a team can underperform. Strictly on paper right now, but the games aren't played on paper. But on paper, Maryland, I think, probably has a bottom team in the Big Ten. That's just how I see it right now. That's just how I see the roster. I think it's a bottom roster in the Big Ten. And what kind of sparked me to talk about this is I was reading an article that was actually really interesting, that Maryland was ranked at the bottom of this ranking by USA Today. There's post-spring rank. So going into the summer, post-spring ball, they ranked all 136 Division I college football teams. So that's every single Division I team. And usually a team like Maryland, I think for me, I probably would want them around anywhere from 25 to 40, 50 range for a Maryland team. You probably want to be around there heading into kind of the rankings and heading into the summer, or in terms of when we actually play the games. Because, of course, the games aren't played in the summer. But USA Today, when they ranked all 136 Division I football teams, Maryland came towards the back. Mike Locksley's team ranked 97th in the country. That's pretty bad. And so obviously, what does USA Today know? How well do they know this roster? Whatever the case is, ranking 136 teams and being accurate on every single one of them is literally impossible. Like, it's just not going to happen. But still, it is interesting to hear what other people think. And I'd be lying if I said there isn't some sense to it. There isn't some reason to it. Maryland was ranked behind teams like Utah State, Eastern Michigan, Western Michigan, but they're ranked above Big Ten teams like Northwestern, who is at 109, Purdue at 120. But 97 definitely isn't ideal, but it's not the worst in the Big Ten, but you definitely aren't aiming to be that low in terms of ranking. But why do I think that this Maryland team can struggle, and why do I think this Maryland team might not be as good under Mike Locksley? I think the biggest reason for me, there is no pop on this roster. When we talk college football teams, when we talk about the best, when we talk about top 25 teams, usually rosters are going to have some pop. They're going to have some excitement. They're going to have a guy or two that you feel really good about. This Maryland team lacks that. There's no guy. It's not like you feel great about a position group or you feel great about 3 or 4 players. Last year, we didn't have a great year, but I still felt good about Dante. I still felt really good about Ty Fallon. I still felt really good about Caden Prather. I felt good about Roman Hemby and what he did. I felt good about Jordan Phillips. And we had all those guys, most draft picks under Maryland in since like 19 something, and we still couldn't win games. And this Maryland roster is not, there's no pop. There's not, like, I have a trouble going through the roster and saying that guy could be an all Big Ten selection. Like when we did this exercise one day, I was like, I don't know anybody on this roster that I'm like, that guy might be all Big Ten. I just don't. Maybe, I mean, there's guys in the future who you think would be one, but in terms of just pure players, I don't know if there's a guy in this roster that I point to that I'm like, that's an all Big Ten player. That's a really good football player. That's a really good position group. And the lack of kind of pop, the lack of, I don't want to say talent, but ready talent, because I think this team has talent and could be a couple years away. But I think the lack of ready talent that is ready to go, and that's what you need in football. The freshman class can't save you. I think this is the best class Mike Locksley has had. This freshman class of 2025s with Malik and some of these other guys that we have. But that doesn't save you in college football. In basketball, we can get saved by a McDonald's All-American and Derek Queen, and he can go make us one of the better teams in the country if we have a supporting cast and all those different things. In college football, a freshman can't save you. And so it's not like the freshman can come in here and just save this program immediately. That's just not how it works. And so for me, there's a lack of ready talent. The freshmen ain't probably going to be ready. Like maybe 1 or 2 of them are ready, but that doesn't save your football team. And when we go position group by position group, you just don't feel great about any position group. And if I don't feel great about any position group, how am I going to say this team is a top team in the Big Ten or a mediocre team in the Big Ten? It ain't easy being a mediocre team in the Big Ten. There's some really solid teams in the middle of the Big Ten. There's some really solid programs in the middle of the Big Ten that are usually there year to year. When you talk about some of the middle teams, like when you think about Indiana right now, when you think about Wisconsin year to year, ends up being pretty good. Illinois ends up being pretty good, it feels like. It ain't easy being in the middle of the pack either. You need some consistency. You need some guys. And so even though Maryland's schedule is really easy, I think in terms of roster and ready talent, I don't want to say pure talent because I do think that Maryland has some pure talent down below that you're like, okay, those guys are exciting. Like you think of some of the guys on your team, like Jalen Gilchrist, offensive lineman. He's really exciting. Malik Washington, really exciting. Braden Lee, that's a really exciting kid. I think Zymir Smith, really exciting. Like there's guys that are exciting, but are they ready to play? Messiah Delhomme, are those guys ready to go? Are those guys ready to play? I just don't think so. And then also, I think when you talk about it, you got to talk about the quarterback room. We don't have anybody that has proven a thing. And I love Malik Washington, and I think he's going to be our guy, and I think he's going to really help this program and lead it to a really good spot. But we don't have a quarterback that has done anything in his college career. It's a complete inexperienced room. There's not like one guy who's made starts, even at like a bottom of the level Division I, like one of the worst, one of the not as good, maybe Power 4 teams in the Big Ten. Like we don't have any anyone that has played meaningful football in our quarterback room more than a couple games. And so you look at that and you say, okay, Malik Washington might be the guy, but he's also young. He's young, and you guys know freshmen don't just come in here and light the world on fire and look like the best guys ever. Like that's just not how it works. And so you start to think about Maryland's roster and Maryland's team, and it leads me to say, on paper, this is one of the worst teams in the Big Ten, purely on paper. But again, I want to remind people the game isn't played on paper. So maybe they come together and they end up executing, they end up playing hard, they end up doing things the right way, and guys are in the right spot. And in football, that's a lot of it. If guys are locked in mentally, you can keep up. If you don't turn over the ball, you'll be in a lot of games that you might not supposed to be in because you don't turn over the ball, you don't make mental errors because the other team is going to make a lot of that, and that can make up for talent. So maybe we're sharp in other areas, which I think we have to be, or maybe guys just really kind of expand and kind of surprise me and make me look dumb. And all of a sudden we have 7 Big Ten, all Big Ten selections, and Maryland has a really good year. Maybe that happens. But as I see it right now, this Maryland team is a bottom roster in the Big Ten. That's just the way it is. Doesn't mean we finish the bottom of the Big Ten. Doesn't mean we end up being the worst team in the Big Ten. It just means the way I see it is that they're the bottom of the Big Ten. So USA Today's post-spring ranking, to me, honestly, has a little bit of fairness. I don't know if I haven't gone through it, so I don't know if I would say we're the 97th ranked team. Like I feel like we're better than some of these teams that they have ahead of us. Like they got some teams ahead of us that you would feel were better than. But I do think that Maryland's team right now, you would say, is in the bottom of the Big Ten. I don't know if we're at the bottom of the country, 97th, but bottom of the Big Ten, I would agree with. How can the receiving room help? I think the receiving room has a lot of potential, but who are the guys that we should be looking out for? We'll talk about that next. Ever check your bank account and wonder, where did all my money go? Between dining out, online shopping, entertainment, it's easy to lose track. That's where Monarch Money comes in. Your personal CFO giving you full visibility and control of your finances. Monarch isn't just a budgeting app, it's a complete financial command center. You can track all your accounts, investments, and spending in one place. So you stop just managing your money and start building your wealth. When I started using Monarch, I realized just how much I was spending on food delivery, and now I budget smarter and save more. Instead of juggling multiple apps, you can use Monarch to check your finances, track spending, and even plan long-term goals. Managing money with your partner is smoother than ever. You can track shared and personal accounts, set goals, and stay on the same page without the stress. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONCollege at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONCollege for half off your first year. So Maryland's receiving room, I think, is really interesting. And I don't know kind of how I word this, but I think it could end up being a really solid unit. But I also think it could end up not living up to the Maryland receiving room that it's been. And so I think there's a lot of kind of fluctuation that goes on with this room. If that's a word, fluctuation. I don't know if that's a word, but this team, I think it's a really interesting receiving core. I just don't know if it ends up panning out, but I also think there's a chance that guys look good and this receiving room is deep. I do think this year we should go deeper at the receiving room. Last year, we knew our guys. We knew it was Ty. We knew it was Caden. We want to keep those guys in all game. Octavian was right there. I think this year we can spread it out. We can play all these different guys, and I like the different bodies we have in our room until somebody proves that, yeah, I'm the guy. Yeah, I should be playing a lot. I think that there's different body types. I think that there's different types of players. And even though nobody has really proven themselves recently at as high of a level as we probably would want them to, I do feel like this receiving room could be really interesting for the Terps overall. So we'll see exactly how it ends up panning out. I think that the guys that I expect to be pretty good for us, is Jaleel Farouk and Octavian Smith. I think those two guys, I feel like I should be able to trust to be pretty good. The only thing is there's always a caveat to our receiving room. That's what kind of concerns me. There's a caveat to Jaleel Farouk. He's coming back from an injury, a season-ending injury, and he was really good in 2023, but that was a while ago now. In 2022, too, he had a pretty good year as well. 2023, 45 receptions, 694 yards. 2022, 37 receptions, 466 yards, 5 touchdowns. But it's been a while since he's done that. And even though you feel really good about how he's produced in the past, you just don't know about him coming back from the injury. But he's been more productive than any receiver we have in this room, and has done it at a pretty high level at Oklahoma. So you do feel like he can somewhat reciprocate that and hopefully can get back to the player that he was. And then Octavian Smith, I just think what we've seen from Octavian Smith at times, we're pretty certain he can translate. 30 receptions, 315 yards last year. I thought he had a really solid year as a third guy. I thought he was up and down. I think that he has more talent than what has been shown against USC. He kind of had a huge day, 8 receptions, 84 yards. Like, he had big games throughout the year for sure, but I think he has a higher ceiling. And then after that, I think it gets really interesting. I think there's guys that there's a bunch of guys that haven't really played that you're excited about. Caleb Webb, the transfer from Tennessee, big body kid. He's supposed to be really fast as well. And whenever you mix those two together, you have an exciting type of prospect. You have an exciting type of player. And so he hasn't played a ton of Tennessee. So I don't know exactly where he fits into the mold. I don't know exactly how he's going to look, but he's big body, has some speed apparently. So I think it should end up looking solid. He's projected to be a guy that plays a good amount this year. And then I thought Ryan Manning had a really solid spring game. I thought he looked really solid in the spring game. And Ryan Manning's always one of those guys that I like. He's a smaller guy, not as big as Caleb Webb, is more the size of Octavian Smith, but doesn't have the speed. But I think he's a really good guy at getting open and finding spots and route running and just being a guy that can provide those different types of things. So I kind of want to see Ryan Manning more and what he can do as a redshirt sophomore. And then Mekhi White, I think he was the winner of the spring game. I think he's our most interesting kind of guy in terms of most polarizing. He could end up being a guy at the end of the year that we look at and say, yeah, he's maybe our best receiver headed into next year. Or we could be like, yeah, Mekhi White didn't really have a great year. Maybe next year's the year. I think he's shown the spring game that his size, that 6'4", really can help. But I don't know exactly how he'll actually end up looking. But I think he definitely has a chance to kind of make a huge jump, going from redshirting to looking like one of our starting receivers. Like, that's a guy where it's like, when we start playing the games, it's like, okay, maybe Mekhi White's one of our top 3 receivers, or even Ryan Manning. And then Shalik Knox hasn't completely put it together, but he's also was a 4-star recruit, really talented as well in terms of his body type. So we'll see if he's able to do it, but he's another guy that can maybe figure it out this year. And then you bring in Jordan Scott, who spent a little time at FSU before coming over here. He's supposed to be 6'7", so that's something else. That's a crazy size human. So I do think there's different body types. I do think this receiving room can go a couple different ways. I do kind of think it's a really interesting room, and I like the way it's kind of put together. But I do think that there's a lot of different body types, and I think we have no idea how that room's going to go. But when we talk about Malik Washington and those different things and not having an experienced quarterback, those guys are really going to have to step up and provide outlets for Malik Washington and really be able to do some different things. Maryland basketball still has no size on its roster. We'll talk about that next. The NBA playoffs are in full swing, and every night delivers highlight-worthy performances, major momentum shifts, and can't-miss moments. Whether it's a game-winning shot or a breakout player, there's never been a better time to get in on the action. FanDuel makes it easy to stay in the game and before tip-off and live. With player props, performance trends, and same-game parlays, fans have way more than ever to win big. Which players are showing up in the biggest moments? You can track that on FanDuel. And you can also get $200 in bonus bets that add to your excitement if your first $5 bet wins. There's so many different things you can do on FanDuel. The NBA playoffs right now, the NHL playoffs, MLB, and then football season will be back before we know it. New to FanDuel, it's a perfect time to sign up. Head to FanDuel.com and place your first $5 bet, and if it wins, you get $200 in bonus bets. Make every moment more with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. So Maryland basketball still has no size on its roster, and I think it's starting to become more and more of a concern for me just based off of where Maryland's roster is at. I really like the team. I think it's a really solid team that Buzz Williams has put together, and I want to make sure I give him credit because this team literally had nobody on the team. There's nobody, a single player that's back from last year. And so you bring in a whole new team. Buzz Williams brings in a whole new team. And you look at the roster, and it looks like a team that can compete. And we'll talk about it another day, how good I think the team can actually end up being in terms of talent, in terms of where they can finish. I still am kind of trying to figure that out because there's a couple guys like George Turkson and Andre Mills. A lot of that's going to depend on how good those guys are. But I think this team's really solid. I think it takes on that Michigan State fold where it's like we have 5 guys that can start, and then there's 5 guys on the bench that are really similar in terms of talent, all solid players. Maybe nobody that's going to get us 20 a night like Derek Queen did last year, but a bunch of really solid guys, like a bunch of really solid players. And I think that's really exciting for the Terps. But I think the size thing is a concern for Maryland. I do think it's a bit of a concern. I think we're just lacking size. There's no other way to say it. We don't have a ton of big bodies when you look at it. Now that Julian Reese and Derek Queen, the two of the best starting bigs that we've had in a while, are gone. And Julian Reese, I think, was looking to fill out a waiver, see if he could get a 5th year to go play somewhere else. That'll be interesting if that actually ends up happening. And then Derek Queen's going to be a lottery pick in the NBA. I think the draft lottery is today, so we'll start kind of getting an idea of where he could possibly end up going. So that is going to be interesting as well. But this team has no size. It just doesn't. Pharrell Payne's the biggest guy, and I like Pharrell Payne. He's arguably going to be our best guy immediately, but he's only 6'9". And then you move off after that, and Elijah Sanders, is 6'8"? Solomon Washington, 6'7". There's not a lot of size on this roster, and I think that we definitely need to add someone bigger than 6'9". I just think that's what you need in the Big Ten because you're going to play some teams this year that have just some big players that are going to be hard to match up against. And if Maryland ends up not being able to bring in bigger guys, you can always do things like double and do some of those things down low. And Pharrell Payne is a good defender. We have good defenders on the team for sure. And you can't play for Buzz Williams if you don't defend, they say. But at the end of the day, the size still matters. It's going to be a lot harder to play defense on some of these guys. Like Purdue just picked up a guy in the portal that's he was one of the top players in the portal. The kid's huge. They have a huge guy every single year. There's just teams in the Big Ten that are going to have really big players. It's just what it is, that are bigger than 6'9". And so you're going to need some size to balance it out. And then also, I think, what do Maryland fans learn from last year? That rebounding is so important. And we had 2 really big guys last year, and Queen and Reese, that you would think would be able to rebound at a pretty high level, but Florida out-rebounded the heck out of us. It made it a lot harder to stay in that game and made it, or let's say that allowed us not to stay in the game. That kept us out of the game is the fact that we couldn't rebound. And next year, if we can't bring in anybody that is bigger than 6'9", I think that could be a challenge and a weakness of this team. And so I don't know who we could bring in. I'm not in touch with exactly who they're actually looking at. And I don't know if anyone really knows too much about that right now. But I do think the next guy has to be some type of big. Because what if Pharrell Payne gets in foul trouble? Maryland's really small. In college basketball, the one thing that I don't like about college basketball is players get in foul trouble relatively easily. So I definitely think that's a bit of a concern that Maryland's going to have to clean up. That's all we have for today. Thank you guys for listening to Locked on Terps. Make sure you like and subscribe. We're here every day talking Maryland football and basketball. So thank you guys for listening to Locked on Terps.